Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Stepping Out of Stuck podcast. I'm Bonnie Brindle, the Anxiety Avenger,
And I'm Ted Simmons, the superhero of Shyness.
and together we,
Help you to get unstuck.
so let's get after it. I'm so happy, and Ted is so excited to have you here today, my friend, for episode one of Stepping Out of Stuck. Now, you know from our names and our monikers that my specialty is managing anxiety, and
Mine is Shyness.
so the two of us got together and created this podcast because we realized that for some people, anxiety and shyness go together, and sometimes they don't. But we both had a lot of trouble socially when we were younger people, and we've worked our little tails off to get forward from that. So we want to help you do the same. So, something that Ted shared with me recently was something called the random word generator, which I'd never heard of before. So, Ted, could you tell our friend what a random word generator is?
Well, basically, I found a site on the internet that basically generates random words for things like Scrabble and other things along those lines. And what it did is it gave us specific words that we can go through and we can respond to.
Okay, so we each looked at them from our perspectives. Of course, his being shyness and my being anxiety, and came up with some interesting responses. So, we kind of wanted to share those with you to see what you might think from where your perspective is right now. So if you grab a pencil or a pen and maybe take some notes down about what the words are, and then take your time afterwards to go through them from your perspective, then maybe when we meet again, you could share that with us or share it in the chat if one of those really comes up strongly for you. So what was the first word, Ted?
I had down impossible.
Oh my. Okay. What did you write for that?
And for me, for in the aspect of shyness,
Hmm.
it may seem impossible to get to know anyone. Shyness is often the rules we create around ourselves to keep ourselves safe, but those rules often hold us back from necessary change. We don't realize that change is vital to actually our growth.
Wow. Okay. That makes a lot of sense to me from the perspective of shyness. I was a shy kid, but I'm not a shy adult.
Hmm.
But anxiety gave me a little different look at that word. So
Hmm.
I could say that impossible for me,
Hmm.
impossible, it once felt impossible for me to do things that my friends do regularly, like
Hmm.
sit in a movie theater or take a train somewhere or fly to another state to visit a friend.
Hmm.
Anxiety had such a hold on me at one point when I was stuck in the house with agoraphobia, like the
Oh,
fear of going
yeah.
out into the world, that it affected my life so deeply that I was once unable to just move around and do things other people don't even think twice about doing. But the cool
Right.
thing about impossible now is, as a therapist, I'm working with a client, a young man who, when we met, thought that those things were impossible for him. And he's starting to move out of that too. So impossible is a strong one for me. How about you,
Uh,
Ted? What's the next one?
my other one was disillusioned.
Ooh,
Um, and disillusioned, it's like what, you have an idea of something, but then you're disillusioned by it, right? So, we often think of certain limitations that are set in stone. And I'm sorry, I'm reading from this here.
hey, notes are okay. People need to
Yeah,
know that. Getting back to your notes is okay.
right. Uh, but we often think that certain limitations are set in stone,
Mm.
only to find that they were rules of our own making. Change happens when we notice that a rule we have set, um, held, and we have held no longer serves us and needs to be reevaluated.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, I can definitely say in my own life that shyness is all about protection, right? And so you're putting up a shield and you're setting up rules to protect yourself.
Mm,
And what I was talking about here was basically those rules basically limit you in what you can do.
hmm.
And they kind of limit you in where you can grow and move forward. Um,
I can see that. And I can see how shyness and anxiety are similar in that way because
mhm.
anxiety also is used to keep you safe. So safe
Oh
that you
yeah.
don't get to do things you want to do, right? To
Yes.
be worrying about the future, to be always looking for
Hmm.
the what ifs and the watching out.
Hmm.
It's the same basis. It's all about trying to protect ourselves, even though shyness and anxiety look very different. That's
Yes.
interesting. The foundation's the same. So I would say for disillusioned, I was deeply disillusioned when I managed to be the first one in my family to go to college, to scrape and claw to get into that. And
Hmm.
my anxiety little packed its little bag and came along with me. And pretty soon I wasn't able to get to and stay in classes. And I ended up dropping
Mm.
out at the end of my first semester.
Oh
Talk about disillusioned.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was my lowest point, I would have to say. I had to make a decision between not staying here any longer and reaching out for help, and I made the right one.
Mm.
So, although I was deeply disillusioned, I reached out to a therapist, and that was started me on the path of completely changing my life.
Nice.
Mm,
Yeah. It's amazing how like we get stuck in these boxes
mm,
and we're just trying to figure out how do we get out of these? You know, how do we stop being in our boxes? And we
mm.
don't often realize that that box that we've done, that we've created, is actually the rules that we've set up to keep ourselves safe.
Yes.
And it's, my particular challenges with that were just going through and first off, realizing that I was automatically reacting to things, um, and that I'd automatically do this thing to protect myself.
Mm,
And it took that little bit of time, that half second. You can definitely see that in kids, right? That little half second thing of stopping yourself, or kind of thinking of what emotion you're going to have, right? When a little kid goes through and they bang their hand or something like that, you can start seeing their faces change, and then it cringe up, and then they start crying. We have that in ourselves, right? But we do it automatically all the time.
mm,
But something that I realized early on was that there's this little half second time that you can go through and you can actually observe what you're going to feel. And by catching that, you can actually change, what the outcome is, right? Because you're starting to observe it.
yeah.
And I'd say that that in itself really helped me out. I don't know, what about you?
So thinking about that moment where you're almost like doing like a quick evaluation of where you are and what's happening before
Hmm.
you react, right? You're training yourself to respond, really, is what you're saying,
Hmm.
rather than react. And so I'm thinking about our listener who may be feeling like, yeah, I react quickly, and that was really important. And I want to make sure we make that point to them that when you were a kid, when I was a kid, we did what we could do to keep ourselves safe.
Right.
And there wasn't that, oh, I'm going to think about how I'm going to respond to this time then, right? It was a survival instinct. And
Right.
that's the thing that when those survival instincts were useful once,
Hmm.
but then we bring them into our adult lives and they're yeah, not useful anymore. And it's just not that easy to just shut them off. So I
Right.
love the fact that you're thinking, I'm in this place. I could react quickly like I used to, but I don't need a a tactic right now.
Right.
I can take a moment and make a better response. So yeah, I love that. Love that idea. I think that's something we can really sort of play with a lot as we move through connecting with our listener about when do you react, when do you respond, and how those things look different.
Right.
Yeah, so let's do one more of the words on the list. The next one was better. What'd you have for better?
Yeah, I actually wrote this better. You will feel better after this. But what is better? Is it better to remain safe
Mhm.
or reach out and grow?
Now that's a question a responder would ask themselves, right?
Right?
Yeah, when you're responding
Yeah.
instead of reacting, you're like,
Yeah.
do I
Yeah.
really need to be safe right now, or can I reach out?
Right?
Cool. Great way to think
Yeah.
about getting better. I had written that every therapy session, every
Hmm.
meditation I learned, every self-help book that I read, every person that I really sat down with and talked openly about what was going on,
Hmm.
all of those human and animal friends and connections
Hmm.
made me better. Every time I reached out in
Nice.
some way to something that another offered me, I got
Hmm.
better. Yeah.
I
So
like that. I like that.
thanks.
So the you talked a lot in your book about horses
Yes.
and how they made a connection. Can you go deeper into that?
Yeah, if I can for a moment.
Yeah.
And my book is this one called
Hmm.
Cracking the Crazymakers Code, 9 Simple
Hmm.
Steps to Ease Your Anxiety. In chapter 8, which I called Perseverance, I did talk a lot about horses because I was really fortunate to meet the horses of my dreams in real life when I was 10. And
Hmm.
that was around where I really started to recognize the dysfunction of my family and really wanted to be away, away from home and out of the house and such. So I threw myself into working around horses, like after school, on the weekends, every vacation. We went to the local livery stable and learned to muck a lot of horse stalls, groom horses, and eventually became a trail guide and taught lessons to other little kids. And that was my therapy to start with. I didn't realize then that horses were my first therapist and they helped me to ground myself and
Hmm.
keep a focus that helped my anxiety to not consume me completely, really. Yeah, the animals have been a huge
Nice.
part. That'll be a big theme as we go forward for me. What was one thing that you really connected to that we can talk to our listener about before we close? What's something you connected to deeply that helped you move forward?
Oh gosh. For me, it was just it was challenging myself.
Mm,
Um, I think that you know I really opened up when I started challenging myself to do the opposite of what I would normally do,
mhm.
and really observing. One of the great things about being shy is that you observe everything, right? You're basically watching for anything that will attack you. But if you're going through and you're that layer of protection, if you go through and you see what you would normally do and then do the opposite, and then see that the opposite is not hurting you, that's what helped me out the most.
Mhm.
It was that challenge of seeing if I could do that opposite thing, and that helped me grow tremendously.
Oh, okay. So that's harkening back to the responder idea. You're taking the time to slow down
Right.
a little bit and making a conscious effort to challenge yourself to do something different. It kind of reminds me of what I would call and what I did for myself was to practice in the setting. Like
Right.
I can't get on an elevator. I'd even go near one. I that was
Hmm.
one of my first steps. I just sit there and watch people go up and down an elevator in a building, hard enough for me to be in the building. And
Hmm.
eventually it was, get on, get off into steps, right? You like you were taking steps to challenge yourself.
Right.
So so that then in closing then, how about this?
Hmm.
How about if we ask our listener to consider the idea of better,
Hmm.
what he, she, or they can do before our next episode to challenge a little bit, to take a small step, to reach for better. and then let us know in the comments what those steps might be.
Nice. I like
Yeah.
it.
All right. So when
Yeah.
we come back for episode 2, we're
Mhm.
going to bring some of those up and we see who has put a little comment in there for us. And we totally encourage you guys, if you're feeling anxious or shy, you are safe with the Anxiety Avenger and
The superhero shyness.
and that's our closing for today, folks. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye.